Hey guys, what's up? It's Elementz here. Today I'm going to be talking about the 4.21 patch note changes and how they're going to affect our metagame. I'm going to go over all the champions, all the new items, and all this stuff. And I'll just give you the rundown of my thoughts on the patch and what we can expect with these changes. First things first, I want to say sorry about not doing a patch for 420 review. I didn't really know too much about it. There were so many changes with the jungle, and I wasn't, confident enough to talk about it and give my opinion on it in any way, shape, or form. So I just decided not to do it. I'm starting fresh with this one, so let's jump right into this. Rek'Sai, the Void Burrower. He'll be released later in the patch, so we can't really talk about him yet. Azir is getting a lot of bug fixes. Just overall attack animation and soldier stuff, the synergy. He's received, I think this is like the second or third patch of just like bug changes that he's received. So if you're a Azir player, I'm sure this will be very handy for you, and it'll definitely help you out overall. Only thing that really is kind of cool here is that that affects the gameplay is the allied speed boost of Emperor's Divide now grants assists. That's really the only big change out of this that's actually going to affect any gameplay. So with that being said, we're going to move on to Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia actually got a lot of changes here. Starting off with the passive, she's actually going to start building stacks. So if you guys don't know, Cassiopeia has like a threshold marker. It says right here. Previously at 75, 200, and 400, she would get different stack bonuses, which give her additional stats. Like one increases her AP by like 40% or something crazy like that. I don't know the exact thing. I don't play Cass specifically, but I'm just giving you what it does. So now she's actually going to receive stacks once every 6 seconds, 10 times per minute. You're going to get a stack for every second that an enemy champion is poisoned, and for an enemy and for every second an enemy champion is poisoned, you're going to build stacks. So you can get lots of stacks. I think it's going to be a lot easier to maintain, upkeep, and actually get these going into mid game. So that's actually been really helpful to utilize her passives a lot better. Q, Noxus Blast, is actually getting a pretty decent buff here, I think. It was hitting anywhere between 0.25 seconds and 0.5 seconds, and now it just has a flat delay of 0.4. I think normalizing that's going to help out. You're going to be more consistent when you're landing your Qs. Also, I think this is actually a pretty big buff for her laning phase. You get 20% bonus movement speed at all ranks. So previously you had to level up to rank 5 to get the 30%, right? Or rank 3, which would be level 5 in laning phase. So now you get that 20% bonus movement speed right off the bat. That's actually going to help you from running away from ganks, being overly aggressive in lane, harassing and stuff like that. I think it's actually a really good buff to her laning phase, because that's such a strong part of Cassiopeia. Is just her laning phase and getting ahead and kind of bullying, and I think this is actually a really substantial buff. Next up is her E Twin Fang. Twin Fang now adds a debuff on the target that amplifies further poison damage by plus 20% for 5 seconds. This debuff can stack up to 2 times, capping at 40% bonus damage. It just says poison damage. It doesn't specify her damage, so I'm assuming that's also going to apply with Teemo, with Singed and stuff like that. So maybe there could be some pretty good troll bot lanes with that in mind. But overall, her mana is actually getting reduced slightly, increased by 5 at early ranks, but at the last rank it's actually reduced by 15 mana. So kind of normalizing that, kind of pushing it together like this. And same going with her AP ratio. It's actually getting overall buffed, I'd say. Even though its endgame ratio was 0.06, the flat 0.55 overall, instead of scaling from 0.04, I think is actually pretty good too. I think that all this stuff just really helps her in her laning phase, helps her build, and I think all these buffs I think are going to help push Cass into the mid game, which is really strong, because if you get going on Cass, she's just a monster. So all these buffs I think are just great, or changes, buffs, whatever you want to call them, but I think they're really great for her laning phase. Next up is Cho'Gath. Now this might not seem like a big buff or anything like that. Now it says Feast has a 50% of its cooldown and mana cost refunded if it kills a minion or a monster, right? So you can actually get feast stacks like way quicker because of that. It's 50% off. So you know all those times you die and you're like, oh my god, I gotta feast something, and you gotta wait the whole cooldown, and I gotta feast something. Now you can just nom minions in lane, nom anything in the jungle, anything like that. And I just think that's actually a good quality of life change for Cho players. I think everybody who plays Cho is actually going to be happy about this, and it actually might make him more viable just because of this change. Just because you can keep your feast stacks up more so, I think is actually really quite strong. But the cooldown got increased by 80 seconds at all ranks, opposed to 60 seconds in all ranks. So that's a 40-second cooldown. Opposed to a 60 seconds. So granted, it's helpful for minions, but they're not giving you that team fight. But I mean, literally, if you get most Chos build like Frozen Heart and lots of CDR, so you should be able to spam this regardless. Which again, as I said, is pretty good. I think it's a buff overall. I would say, even though it got pushed up a little bit, I still think it's an overall buff. Corki's getting his missile speed on his phosphorus bomb dropped down a bit. I guess they felt that Corki was hitting stuff a little too easily with the phosphorus bomb, and they want that delay to be a little bit harder to hit when you're trying to figure out where you're aiming that stuff. I don't know if this is what necessarily Corki needed. I think he just has crazy amounts of damage, crazy amounts of hybrid damage. There's tons of Corki middles and stuff like that going on right now. We'll see if this is gonna stop that from happening. I don't think so. I still think Corki's gonna be a pretty dominant force in the bot lane and the mid lane because of just his kit right now, the way he synergizes with Trinity Force. He's just a very strong overall champion at the moment. And yeah, I don't know if I agree with this trying to nerf his viability. I don't know if this was the best way to go about it, but it's happening, so it's a nerf's a nerf, and that's about it. Diana, her Lunar Rush is when you use it on targets that have the Moonlight debuff, it will still reset Lunar Rush's cooldown even if Diana is interrupted out of her dash. So if you get hit, you get bumped, you get anything, so many times you play Diana, Q in, try to R, you get messed up, and then there you lose your R stack, can't jump back in. This is actually these tiny little quality of life changes are actually really nice. As a Diana player, sometimes I play her like once in a blue moon, haha. Yeah, so punny. I think it's actually a really good quality of life change. Being able to maintain your stacks is like the bread and butter of Diana. Being able to jump from target to target and keep refreshing the stack with your Q. So I really do like this change, and I think it's overall, as I said, a great quality of life change. It's actually going to improve her quite a bit, I think, if she ever comes back in the meta big time. Now Fiddlesticks, Fiddlesticks I think got destroyed. Fiddlesticks got murked. Look at this. The passive for Dread is like awful. So dealing magic damage or casting Terrify applies Dread to enemies for 2.5 seconds, reducing their magic damage by 10. So it's not just this AoE reduce everyone's MR by 10 per or 10 flat anymore. You have to do damage, or they have to be feared or terrified. And some might not think that's that great, but I actually think this is a pretty big nerf to him. Dread's been super potent. It's always been like one of the best things about Fiddlesticks is his passive was just crazy strong for that MPEM. But I don't know how much I like that, and I don't know. I just think that's kind of crappy for him. I know, granted, he is super strong in solo queue right now. And I'm sure a lot of people are happy about this, but as a Fiddlesticks player, I just hate seeing my boy get nerfed again. And another nerf coming down. I mean, well, this is a buff and a nerf. So bounce all day. Dark Wind will now prioritize targets not hit yet by Dark Wind. Okay, that's nice. That's a nice buff. But Dark Wind can still hit multiple times, but it'll only silence them once. I think this is such like a massive nerf. If you ever get into like 2v2 situations or these like small skirmishes, Fiddle's ability to lock down people has just been cut pretty dramatically, I think, here. And I think these two nerfs actually might be able to knock him out of being picked tons, or pick and ban worthy in the solo queue so much. I think these are two pretty substantial changes that hurt him pretty badly, actually. Up next is the Galio. Alright, here's another quality. Dude, I read these already, and I'm just loving Riot's quality of life changes. So, Idol of Durand. I love me some Galio, if you guys did not know. Idol Durand's taunt is no longer reducible. Is that even a word? Shouldn't it just be reduced? Reduced by tenacity. So, doesn't matter if you've got the Merc boots, doesn't matter if you've got the other sword thingy that reduces or adds tenacity, I can't remember what it's called, or the jungle item. This is actually a huge buff, because that means his ultimate gets the full duration regardless of what's happening, if you have any of this. Only thing that can stop Galio now in his ultimate is interrupting himself, which means you need to be outside his taunt range and dropping like silence, whatever, some sort of CC to knock him out of it, which is actually think is really strong. And I don't think it's going to bring Galio back into viability per se, but for players that do enjoy playing Galio, this is a very, very good quality of life change that I think everyone can enjoy. Jarman. Jarman got a bug fix, and he's going to do damage sometimes that he wasn't doing damage. It's sweet. Bug fix. Bug fixes is not much to talk about. Jax. So Jax got a little buff to his counter strike. It's going from 18 to 16 at the first rank, and from 10 to 8. So 2-second overall change. Not crazy, not a crazy amount of changes, but Jax has always been this kind of, he's either like so ungodly broken, or he's just like, no, like doesn't work. And granted, these changes aren't that big. Well, actually, I'll talk about Grandmaster's Might. I'm gonna hold that thought. So Grandmaster's Might is also getting buffed slightly. That's his R. He's getting slight scaling better at rank 1. It's going from 25 to 20, but at rank 3, it's going to 50 from 45. That's the bonus armor. Magic resistance is getting the exact same treatment, but 0.5 attack damage instead of 0.3 scaling is going to buff him up and make him slightly more tanky. So his E got slight cooldown reduction, his R got a little bit, of love for being more tanky. And as I said, he's always been this either amazingly OP or so incredibly like not worthy at all. These little changes I don't think will bring him back. If he gets another set of changes similar to this, where he gets a couple things just tweaked a little bit, I think that would be enough to bring Jax back into the competitive scene, into viability, and actually have him as a quite a strong top laner, because he's not too far off. But I think he just needs one more round of these changes, and he'd be in a good spot. Jayce. His hyper charge W, which is the thing that makes him auto attack 3 times in succession, it's now going to go on cooldown after the third shot instead of applying on the first shot, which is actually a pretty substantial nerf. Although it's getting a 1-second cooldown reduction change, it's like, again, Riot's doing a little bit of buff, a little bit of nerf. Overall, it's not too changed, but it's overall, though, it is, I think, definitely a nerf overall. I'll just keep saying that, overall. Jinx's switcheroo is now going to display when it's casting mana, so that means when you're doing the rocket shot, pew pew pew, you're going to have a little icon that's going to light up, letting you know that you are spending that mana, which is awesome. Kennen. So Kennen's Electrical Surge will now check for viable targets on the beginning of the cast rather than the end, if it still hits enemies after the cast time, but is generally more reliable. So that's a little quality of life change for his W. Not so bad. The R, though, the R change here, I'm not sure how much I love it. So time between strikes went from 0.5, 0.4, 0.333 seconds to overall 0.2 or 0.25 seconds at all ranks. So you're like, oh, that's a buff, right? But the time between strikes on the same person went from scaling from 0.5, 0.4 to 0.3 to 0.5 at all ranks. So it's half a second each time. So basically what this means is Kennen's late game ultimate on single targets will not be as good. So that means Kennen from mid to late game will not be as good as he once was when it comes to taking out individual targets. He's more prone to doing more AoE stuns, getting more procs on everybody with this change. So I don't know how much I like this. I don't know if this is the right thing for Riot to do with Kennen. Because like his early ultimate's already like shit. Like rank 1 Kennen ultimate is like probably, I'd say, one of the worst like baseline ultimates in terms of like how well it scales. Like the level 1 is shit compared to like the level 3 strength, right? And this change kind of, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily help him in the early phase, and doesn't necessarily do that good late game either. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how it pans out, but I don't really like these changes. I don't think they really help him in any shape or form. I think there's kind of blah changes that should be taken back to the drawing board. You know. Alright, up next we got the Lucian, his passive Light Slinger. The passive buff duration is going from 6 seconds. That means you can cast a spell, hold that for 6 seconds, then pew pew, the double shot, right? That's Lightbringer, or Light Slinger rather. So it's going from 6 to 3, and then the ratio 0.5 at all ranks. It's going from 03 to 04 to 05 at 1, 7, and 13. So I don't really think this changes Lucian's laning phase. I don't think it changes his mid game. And I don't really think it changes his late game too much either. Actually, it might change his late game in terms of kiting out fights and stuff like that. But I think the early and mid are pretty much exactly the same. When you combo with Lucian, all you're going to be doing when you first start it, you know, you cast a spell. It's not like you cast a spell and like walk around for a little bit and then go pew pew. You're like, when you play Lucian, you're like you E in or something, especially if you're trying to engage. You're like E in, right? E in, auto, Q, auto, W, auto, right? It's not like you're sitting on those charges. So if you're already a Lucian player and you already know how to combo, you're already pretty good with it. This is like really irrelevant. The 0.3 to 0.5 change is very, very minor nerf. It's like a very, very small nerf to his early and mid game and laning phase. But it's overall, I don't think that much changes. If this is the way they wanted to nerf him, I mean, if they're trying to attack his laning phase, I don't think it really works. I think they could have just reduced the damage maybe, and that would have been it. I think the second duration is kind of irrelevant. But oh well, that's what he got, and I just think he's going to be perfectly fine after those changes. Nocturne. E, Unspeakable Horror, is getting a little bit of a buff. Nocturne now gains massively increased movement speed when moving toward feared targets. So that doesn't sound like... So when you cast your E on somebody, it's like that little line crap that comes out, right? And as long as you keep your tether on them, once they're feared, you're going to get massively increased movement speed. So I guess only when moving toward those feared targets, though. So I don't really know. I guess it's just like a big gap closer for him on feared targets, but the feared target should already be within like pretty close range because the tether isn't even that long. I kind of think this is a somewhat of a relevant change. Sure, it's a nice quality of life change, but overall, I don't see this really doing too much to help him overall. Pantheon. Pantheon is getting his animations cleaned up so that they're smoother, they're quicker, but his overall attack speed is going down. So basically what that means is like when you combo, when you transition from spell to spell to spell, it's going to flow nicer. I don't know why I said there, but there it is again. His auto attack speed in the jungle is going to go down slightly. So you can see it goes from 0.679 to 0.625. So as basically is what I said, his animations are getting cleaned up so the skills flow better, and overall they just want Pantheon not to clear the jungle so good. They don't want him to keep getting his passive stacks of his W so he just absorbs damage. They want him to have to suffer in the jungle a little bit, overall, I don't think these changes are going to hurt him too much, and I actually kind of like how they clean up the animations. So we'll see how this affects him, but I don't think we're going to see too much of a change because of that. Rengar getting some bullshit change, doesn't matter. Sejuani's actually getting a lot of stuff changed here. Her Q and W are basically getting the flat damage and the percentage damage switched. As you can see here, enemy health scaling on Arctic Assault no longer scales with 4 to 12% of the target's maximum health, but the base damage is going from 40 at rank 1 to 80, and at max rank it's going from 160 to 260 magic damage. So Q is going to have more of a packing punch, I'd say, on the early and mid game, most definitely. That's when, you know, you wouldn't even have big HP pools at this point in time anyways, so that additional damage wouldn't even be that much. So I think the base damage is actually going to help her out early game, at least with her Q. So then you have Flail of the Northern Winds. This actually might clear her. Actually, I don't know if that's going to help her clear time though. I'm not sure, because on the single targets, those big minions could take a little more health. We'll see. I'm not that good of a jungler, so don't take my word on it. Flail of the Northern Winds is getting a mana change. It's going from 40 to 20 at max rank. It's a little quality of life. It helps out just a little bit. But now this is where the percentage damage is coming from. And she's actually getting a plus 3% per 100 ability power. So if you got 100 ability power, this is going to be doing 15% at max rank opposed to 12. And it's just going to swirl around and do that. Being at 20 mana, actually, even though 40 is already pretty damn low, 20 mana means that you can just spam that shit all day long, no matter what. If you're like totally you'll be able to regen that, and it's going to be up. The area of effect damage is actually getting slightly nerfed. As I said, they basically got the switcheroo, went from 40 to 80, now it's going from 80 to 40. 100% just switched the two abilities around to compensate and give it a little mana buff. Permafrost is actually getting a pretty substantial buff, I'd say, at rank 5. When you go from 11 seconds to 6 seconds, scaling from 10 at the initial rank, and the damage is actually getting slightly lowered, but you're going to be able to keep this on and spam it more, which I really like. I always felt like Sejuani always had this, like, used all her moves, and then you're like, alright, I'm a ice pig woman, and you just sit there for like the next 20 seconds until your shit comes back up. With this change, you're actually able to drop in this quick. You're gonna actually be able to keep, even though it's going from 1.5 at the base range to scaling up to 2.5 seconds, the slow, it doesn't even matter, because the upkeep time is basically going to be the same. You're going to have more slows for more of the time. Granted, it's not going to be for as long each duration, but on a 6-second cooldown comboed with 30-40% cooldown reduction, it's literally permafrost is going to be permafrost on targets, and I think that's going to be really strong. I'm not sure how well this is going to scale. We actually have to see how her clear is, but I like these changes for her. If they pan out the way they on paper they look like they should pan out, she could be actually quite a strong jungler, or maybe even top laner. We'll have to see. Shen is getting his E buffed a little bit. The energy cost is going from 120 to 100, and that might not seem like a lot, but energy champions, when you have to spend and those abilities cost X amount of energy, 20 can be pretty substantial amounts. So this is actually pretty helpful change to Shen. Not sure if this is gonna like boost him into viability or anything like that. I just think it's a good overall change to Shen. I like it. It's gonna help him out. He's not crazy viable right now, so I'm okay with getting that. Shyvanna, her Q Twin Bite is going from 10-second base to 9, scaling to 5 from 6. So 1 second duration buff on the cooldown timer. Not so bad. A buff's a buff. I'll take it. But the new big thing coming is her Burnout is now going to deal an extra 20% bonus damage to monsters. This bitch is going back to the jungle. Okay, you're going to be that dragon form jungle. You're going to get in there. This is going to be doing a lot more damage. I think her clear time could be like crazy fast now with this. We'll have to see. She's already pretty dang good at clearing the jungle, with the Q, the E, all that stuff. She already has 2 AoE abilities. Pretty good sustain overall, just because of how tanky she is and how much damage she can give out. But overall, I think it's I like it. I like it. I'll definitely play her in the jungle because of that. So Soraka finally getting that nerf bat because she's so incredibly annoying, and she's pretty broken in solo queue, I'd say. Just the stupid amount of sustain she can dish out. So in general, her base health regeneration is 0.6 to 2.5, which is actually pretty good considering she always keeps herself pretty low, and you have to spam star call on targets to heal yourself. This regeneration could actually really hurt her laning phase because she can't heal herself. And the health regeneration growth is going from 0.7 to 0.05. This is actually really painful for her. If she takes a lot of damage early, she could basically get pushed out of laning phase pretty easily. And W ability power range is now actually getting the ability power ratio range is now 0.2, or was 0.2 to 0.4, but is now 0.4 to 0.8. So basically, actually, her W is getting buffed here, surprisingly. So they're actually making her W scale stronger with AP, but nerfing her regeneration pretty heavily. We'll see how that pans out. I honestly wouldn't have changed anything. She already heals like a stupid amount. Maybe drop this to like 3 instead of 4 point, and then like 6. Maybe to make the health regeneration a little bit better, but a little bit softer of a nerf. But I don't know if I agree with buffing the ability after the fact. Let's see how it pans out. We'll still see if she's a super godly healer in laning phase. But next up is Varus. Varus is getting mana regeneration from 0.05 per level to 0.08. This could help him. Varus is all about spamming. It's all about poking. It's all about doing that stuff in the laning phase. This could help him out, but I don't know. I always feel like Varus's main issue is just the fact that he's got all this great poke. Even with the mana changes, he's like a caster 80 carry that has no escapes and no movement speed buffs or anything like that. So he's always just going to be really susceptible to ganks, really susceptible to hard engage, and that's ultimately what's keeping him out of play. And I don't necessarily think this is going to help that in any way, shape, or form. But if you're a Varus man, you like to play him in normals, fuck yeah, buff's a buff. The Wick Hunter's Call is going from a 10-second duration to a 6-second duration, which is actually pretty big. That's 4 seconds of increased attack speed that you're not getting now. On top of that, his Infinite Duress is going from 250 at rank 1 to 150, and 420 from 350 magic damage. So Warwick's actually getting a big nerf bat here. This might kill him. This might kill the Wick who had his very small run for one patch of godliness. I don't know if I would nerf this that heavily. I don't know if I agree with these changes so much. I think they could have lowered him down a bit. I know he's crazy strong with the smiting and ultimate and stuff like that, but I don't know. This might be too much. We'll have to see. I can't say, but yeah, I'm just gonna move on. I think it's a little too much, maybe. Yasuo, I actually like this change. I like these two changes for Yasuo. So in general, his movement speed is going from 340 to 345. Granted, it's just 5 movement speed, but I'll take it. He needs to be quick. You got to be fast with him. You gotta, I like movement speed overall in any character. I like being fast. But his Q is going from a 5-second cooldown to a 4-second. So that might not seem like much, but being able to cast that 1 second earlier when that's like his bread and butter, that's like Steel Tempest, outside of starting E in most laning phases, is how you get your tornadoes, how you build your stacks, all that kind of stuff. So I actually like these two changes. I don't think this is enough to bring him back. Similar to who's a champion we talked about earlier that got a decent amount of buffs. Jayce. So similar to Jayce, how we got these two little very small changes. I think if Yasuo got something else like this, just very minor, he'd be pretty viable again. But we'll have to wait and see if that even happens. I don't think this is going to bring him back, but it's a step in the right direction, I think, because I'm a big fan of Yasuo. I think he's a very fun champion to play. I think he's fun to watch too. So I would really like to see him come back on the scene, but as I said, I don't think it's going to happen with those changes. So Zac, new, so chunky. Zac now creates extra chunks for each additional champion he hits. That's actually not so bad. That means there's going to be more room for you to pick up your blobs. I'm sure Meteos will have a heyday with this. If there's a lot of blobs coming out when you get into team fights or you get into skirmishes like that, that's going to be super helpful for him, getting that sustain. And his damage is actually getting buffed very slightly. It's only getting from 240 to 280 at max rank. But whatever. If you land your E on somebody and you get those extra chunks, again, depending on how many chunks come out, could be really cool. Could not be. It's honestly depending on how many chunks come out, depending how good this is. It could, make him viable, but I don't think he's going to get the enough chunks to actually make him like super tanky or super whatever you would like to call it. Let's Bounce is going from 450, or not 450, 250 I should say, to 400. Enemies will be knocked up higher and longer to match the new range, but total crowd control duration remains the same. So basically, when you land on people with Let's Bounce, they're just gonna fly back a little bit farther, which is, I guess it's better for like disrupting team fights. I don't know how good it is, because generally you just want to E in, land on somebody, and kill them. Making them push farther out could potentially mess up a lot of team fights. I don't know if I actually like that change on Let's Bounce. Yeah, I don't think I like it actually. If it's the way I think it is, and people are going to be knocked back a little bit farther, I don't necessarily like that. Team fights are already hard enough, and Let's Bounce already created people fucking flying off left and right here and there, and I don't think this was a change that needed to happen. But hey, that's just what I gotta think about it. So we got some texture buffs, yay! Who cares? System changes. This is what we really want to know about. So outer turret global gold is going to 125 from 100, and inner turret global gold is going from 125 to 150. So we got 25 gold on 6 towers, which is going to be what, 25? Was like 150 extra gold overall on 6 towers or something like that. If I did my math correctly, we'll see. Someone will call me out if I did it wrong. But so it's like 150 gold overall for everybody once you get all 6 towers. That's really like nothing, like literally nothing, because you have to take all 6 exterior towers to get an extra 150 gold. I mean, I guess it helps. I guess 25 gold here and 25 gold there can be the difference between getting an item and not getting an item in time. So you know what, buff's a buff to taking towers. I'm for it. It's nothing crazy, and more gold I think is better for the game anyway. So I'm with you, Riot. Turret shielding is going to last 1.5 seconds from 1. This is on the inner turret. It's going to shield you for longer. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think the 1 second shield is already fine. I think the shields on towers is already doing its job. I don't necessarily think it needs to last any longer than that. Death timers, minimum death timer from 7.5 seconds to 10 seconds, and maximum death timer to 52.5 seconds from 50 seconds. So they're making it so you can't get back to objectives that quickly. Very small changes, only 2.5 seconds on each increased on the minimum and the maximum death timer. This isn't going to change too much, but it might, be the difference between stopping an inhibitor, stopping a push, or anything like that. So I don't know, we'll have to see how it pans out. It's not necessarily a big change, but it's significant enough that it changes things. Hope that made sense. Experience rewards for killing champions is going from 55% to 50%. Again, there's small little changes to, hopefully get the game in order the way where I would like it going into this next season. It's a good thing the expansion tournament's not being played with all these little errors and stuff like that they're patching. Minion gold. Melee gold is going up to 20 gold from 19, and ranged is going up to from 14 to 15. Again, very, very small changes. A little bit of more gold in your pocket. I like gold. Everybody likes gold. I'm with it. Minion health is getting changed about 4% lower in comparison to the 420 minions, and about 3% lower in comparison to the 420 minions for range minions. So overall, minions will die a little bit faster, very, very slightly faster, and that's really it to talk about that. General changes we got going on here. Don't really care. Item shop, don't really... Oh, actually, item shop buying range. The shop purchasing area is now restricted to the physical platform. Oh, there's no free shipping. This is, if you like to abuse that little bit of area that you could get, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. You actually have to be in the shop area to buy that. I'm okay with that. Actually, that kind of sucks. I don't really like that. I like being able to kind of like run, heal and run out, and then buy the last possible second. But I guess Riot was not down with that. Geographic changes, or geography changes. Slightly adjusted the positioning of blue and red camps so that the area effectively should now consistently hit the same number of monsters for all 4 camps. That's good for junglers with AoE clears that are looking to do that, like specifically like Zac, maybe like Diana or somebody like that in the jungle. I don't know, anybody else who's got some AoE. This is actually a small, very small change, but could actually be a good quality of life change for a few jungle champions. Dragon. Biggest thing to talk about with Dragon here is there's no dancing. So, granted, Dragon got a bunch of fireball buffs, and he's going to hit the same target, and yada yada bullshit. But the biggest thing here is actually Dragon will always finish his attack before switching the target, which means you can't dance the Dragon anymore, and I don't like this change. Because if you were good at dancing Dragon, it was like... being a good Dragon dancer was just like another skill you could do in the game. Because it wasn't like a 100% thing. It wasn't like it was super easy to make sure you could do it every single time. You know, people would mess it up. Even in watching the professionals, like you watch LCS, people would still mess up Dragon dancing. It was a skill. It was something you could learn. It was an additional part to improve your skill as a player. And I think taking it away is just kind of stupid. I know they don't want people to abusing dragons, like early stuff like that. But I feel like they could have changed it slightly or in a different way to allow the dragon dancing to still be in, but make it a little bit more difficult to maybe do the dance. Something like that I think it would have been better than just outright going and killing it. Hand of Baron. The Baron buff is actually going from 240 to 180 seconds, which means it's getting a minute off its duration, and that's actually pretty substantial. I think this actually puts more emphasis on dragon control, even though the dragon changes buffs got changed a little bit. I mean, granted, it's still such a really good buff, but a minute off the duration, you're gonna have to be really quick. You can't fart around with when you have Baron buff anymore. You need to get objectives. You need to move here. You need to move there. You need to utilize your Baron. I don't necessarily hate this decision. I actually think it's okay forcing teams to make use of their Baron, especially specifically because I think Baron buff got buffed a little bit coming into this new patch and the new design, you know, the fast recalls and stuff like that. I think that's really strong. So competitively, I think this helps out the game. For solo queue, I also think this helps out the game. Getting a Baron, stealing a Baron isn't, might not just completely end out the game. And yeah, I actually kind of like that change. I'm okay with it. And the first stack is still going to be the attack damage and ability power, but it's going from 8% to 6%. I still think this is the first dragon is incredibly strong. Just any type of base stat steroid that you're going to get for your entire team is like fucking unreal. Like, so good. So amazing. Even if it's 6% from 8, still amazing. The second stack, it now gives plus 15% to turrets, to damage to turrets. And the fourth stack now gives 15% damage to minions and monsters. So they're switching it up a little bit. They're switching them around. With that second stack being damage to turrets, we actually might see more split pushing because of that. Having that earlier, because they as you said right here, they took the 15% damage away from minions and monsters because they felt people were clearing stuff too fast and all this kind of stuff. But now it's going to be more focused on taking turrets. Jinx, this is a huge buff to Jinx. Get that stuff earlier and just split all day. Take those towers. We'll actually have to see how that pans out. Overall, I like the changes though. Dragon buff needed to be swapped around a little bit, and I actually believe I agree with these changes. I think they're good for the game, and they were right. It was snowballing a little bit too quickly, and yeah, I like them. I like those changes. Gift of Heavy Hands, which is the golem buff for the jungle. The required hits to stun is going from 5 to 6, so a slight nerf, very, very slight nerf to that jungle camp buff. Gift of the Toadstool. It was at 6 damage plus 6 times your level and magic damage over 3 seconds. It's now going to 4, but then times 8 of your level. So it's actually going to scale better than it did overall. Granted, you know, earlier it's not going to be as good, but later, Gift of the Toadstool is going to be very, or not very strong, but slightly buffed. So overall, better late game, sort of nerfed early, not really. Jungle Gold. All jungle camps now give 10 less gold. If you do not have a jungle item, you are not getting that gold, son. You are not getting it. It's not happening. But not really. You're still going to get the gold from it, just 10 less, which is slight nerf, which is okay. Hunter's Machete now grants an extra 10 gold per large monster killed. And early upgrades at tier 2 and tier 3 jungle items now grant 10 or 20 gold per jungle monster. I'm not sure actually how well junglers can utilize this. Maybe farm junglers can get really crazy farmed over it, but it's only 10 and it's only 20 extra gold. It's not too much, but with all the other changes to the jungle and all that stuff's happening, this could actually be pretty good for junglers. Overall, it's just a buff to junglers and a nerf to people taking camps, and I'm actually for it. I'm okay with that. Negatron Cloak is back. We're on to items. Nice. I was actually kind of ticked because Negatron Cloak's been in the game for like day 1, and I was like, man, it's gone. It's kind of cheesed, but I'm glad it's back. It's now just going to upgrade from the Null Mantle, plus 350 gold, 850 total, a little bit increase. I believe it was 740 gold before, so now it's 110 gold more, and the same amount of magic resistance, I think. I think it was 45 before too. Can't remember, but it's back. I like it. Guardian Angel. Magic resistance going from 45 to 50, slight buff, but the recipe's getting changed. Negatron Cloak's going in, but it's also going to cost an extra 100 gold to get a Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel is already a crazy good item for most carries, especially when you're scaling in the late game. Extra 100 gold on it. It's going to stop people from getting it a little bit earlier, but they have a little bit of a buff on it, so I'm okay with this change. Same thing here. Negatron is just going in for Abyssal, unchanged gold total. Excuse me. Targons. So instead of being able to execute minions at 200 HP, it's now going to be 240. Same for Face the Mountain. But the first item is not going to have that happen to it. Can't remember what it's called. Targons, Face the Mountain. Relic Shield. Relic Shield is not getting that treatment though, so if you suck at last hitting at 200 HP and you need 240, you're just going to have to suck it up and learn to do it, I guess. Ranger's Trailblazer, the jungle item. The smite reduction no longer reduces smite's cooldown by 15 seconds. They felt it was just helping junglers clear a little bit too much, a little too quickly, and they were not happy with it. I'm not that familiar with the jungle per se. I don't know how much this changes things for people who are using Ranger's Trailblazer. Overall, it's just a nerf to the item. So if you used it, it got nerfed a little bit. It's not going to give you that 15 second cooldown. Poacher's Knife got a little tooltip that tells you that you're going to be getting extra gold from the items. Skirmisher's Saber is going from 17 to 51 base damage, true damage on hit, to 60 to 100 based on level, true damage over 3 seconds. So that's slight change to it, the way it works. I still think it's going to be really good. We're going to actually have to see how good it is coming up this next patch. I can't say for certain, but I still think it'll be probably one of the most taken jungle items. Just off of the fact that it gives true damage, I think is, you know, and along with the other buffs of the 20% damage reduction, I think it's just really strong. Enchantment Devourer used to be 40 on hit, now it's going to 25. This is a pretty big nerf to this item actually. We might not actually see it coming out too much because of 15 damage per hit stacks up really quickly when you have attack speed champions. So this actually might not have seen that much at all, depending on how the other jungler items go through. But we got Chalice of Harmony, more mana regeneration, going from 1.5 to 2%. I'm okay with it. I like mana regeneration. I'm a support. I like having mana. I like having gold. So far, the things I've heard about the game are good. Same with the Fiends. Same with Mikhail's. All getting that 2% bonus. And the Forbidden Idol. is going from 60% base regeneration to 50%, very slight nerf, and that's actually it, because the next is Twisted Treeland. This has been the 4.21 rundown of the patch note changes. I hope you guys enjoyed my opinions on things. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment, let me know about something. If I said something that was incorrect, or you have a different opinion about how it should go, as I said, let me know, maybe we can have a discussion about how it should actually be. Again, I'm Elementz, thank you guys for watching this, and I'll try to be pumping out more content for you guys like this. Subscribe if you like it. Thanks.